Today I want to talk about monetization, which is the third M in my patent pending list of the three M's of webcomics. So, the first M is making them, the second M is marketing them, and the third M is monetizing or making money off of your shit. Now, with all of these, with any list, or pretty much with anything I have to say on my channel, take it with many grains of salt. Monetization is something that I'm still working through. I still have to schlep a day job. So, it hasn't quite worked out for me, making money off of my work. But I'm working on it. And these are things that I'd like to share with you that I've seen some of my friends use to make money off of their stuff, other people making money off of their stuff, and some things that I'm trying to varying degrees of success. So I've broken it down into three sections, which I've put here in a list. I usually just kind of go off the dome when I YouTube, but to prevent me from rambling too much, I thought I would just focus. Lists. Remember, I like making lists. I actually hate making lists, but lists are helpful. All right, so I'm going to talk about free things that you can do that are fairly easy to set up. They just require time. Second, I'm going to cover merchandise, which usually requires money, sadly. And then third, I'm going to talk about crowdfunding and how that can benefit you and how that can potentially kick your ass. So the most obvious way to monetize your website is to put ads on it. You just hook it up and advertise. There you go. The problem is unless you have a solid number of traffic, of hits, and that would be like, a couple 100,000 every time you update. Unless you're rocking those kinds of numbers, your revenue stream from advertising is going to be limited. It's not, you might be able to buy some pens and some paper so you could draw a comic, but unless you're, clocking 100,000 per update, it's not going to offset your day job income. Now, there are different ad networks that pay better rates than Google AdSense. Google AdSense is just the one that everyone uses, unfortunately. Know this, if you're hooking up Google AdSense and you're a month into your webcomic, you are making nothing but money for Google. You're getting shit. You're getting percentages of a percentage of a percentage of a cent. So I highly recommend that you wait a year or two before you consider advertising. But if you want to jump in right away, I would recommend using something like Project Wonderful, because the people advertising on Project Wonderful are like-minded creators. There are other cartoonists out there trying to get their content out there, and they're using Project Wonderful because it's affordable. I don't think you're going to be making like thousands of dollars on Project Wonderful, but you might be able to get like tens of dollars through Project Wonderful, and that's tens of dollars that you didn't have before. So if you are going to advertise right out the gate, try something like Project Wonderful. Avoid Google AdSense as long as possible, because you're just not going to be making as much money off of their content as they will be making off of you. I go through Hiveworks for my ads. They host a lot of other really great cartoonists, and they also run an ad network that a lot of other cartoonists are hooked up with. So somehow I have enough traffic to make that justifiable for them. So that's pretty awesome. But when you're starting out, maybe ads aren't such a great idea in terms of if you don't have the numbers. Like, I don't know, if you're lucky and you're clocking 100,000 readers out the gate, that's amazing. Don't listen to anything I have to say, because clearly you know what the fuck it is you're doing. But if you're starting out, perhaps Project Wonderful is the route to go. Another thing that along the same lines of advertising is getting sponsors. Now, this is something I haven't done because I'm terrible at cold calling and I'm not very good with new people. But I think this would work for a very focused comic that doesn't necessarily attract a lot of readership, like that doesn't have like a huge readership, but they have a very focused niche and they have valuable readers. So let's say you do a comic on rock climbing, and you make rock climbing jokes, and you make bouldering jokes and things like that. You're probably not going to be attracting like moviegoers or comic book nerds or anything like that, But I guarantee you're going to have a very focused audience of rock climbers, people who love rock climbing, people who, go out, spend their fall climbing outside and free soloing and all that kind of stuff. And this is a community that buys things, buys rock climbing related things. You got to buy shoes, you got to buy harness, you got to buy workout clothes, you got to buy harness. I already said harnesses, gear, cams, that kind of shit. And this is a very focused niche. So you can go to a company like 510 and say, hey, I've got this thing. I've got 1,000 eyes per month, 1,000 rock climber eyes per month. And they love my stuff. They love my jokes. This is the kind of stuff I do. This is your audience. These people will buy your products because 510 are awesome shoes and they will buy your shit. So you can go to them and say, hey, look, would you sponsor my comic for a month? And you can figure out what the rate is, like, $100 per month or like $150 per month or something like that. And then you can also give them some value add. You could say, maybe the people in my comic will only wear 510 shoes, or like maybe if you have a new shoe coming out, the characters in my comic could, go test out the shoes on the wall or something funny around that kind of thing. You can run special promotions for your sponsor or something like that. But work out a special deal, make it mutually beneficial for you. So, you're getting money. Maybe you're not getting money. Maybe you're getting like a free shoe or something like that. But, it could be barter or something like that. Maybe you're working with a local climbing gym. Like say, my characters will climb at your gym if you give me a free month climbing. And that's not necessarily money, but that's a free month of climbing, which is fucking awesome. So if you have a very specific niche like that, you don't require a lot of traffic to go out and to contact potential sponsors. So that's a really good, that's something that I'd like to try. I think if my comic was a little bit more narrow, I think I would go out and look for sponsors that would relate to my content a little bit better. So that's something you should try. Also, somebody out there make a webcomic about rock climbing, because that needs to happen. But the third thing you can do that just requires time and effort and doesn't really require money is to, and if you want to sell merchandise, you can partner up with a site like Cafe Press or Redbubble or Society6, or I think even DeviantArt allows you to sell prints on their website, that kind of stuff. And all you got to do is create an image and set it up with Cafe Press. You can put that image on pretty much anything, like a mug or a shirt or underwear. Redbubble, you can do the same thing. You got stickers. Society6 is focused on like art prints, fine art prints. DeviantArt does art prints. So there are a bunch of these sites that are out there that give you creation tools to set this stuff up for free. The returns aren't that great. Like you're going to be getting $1 or $2 or $3 per sale, because if you want to make like twice back what you're selling it for, you're going to have to price things for like $30. And I know very few people who will buy a $30 t-shirt, unless it's absolutely amazing. But then you should just screen print it yourself, because $30, whatever. Yeah, so you're going to be making pennies on the dollar. Your returns are going to be great, but you get your stuff out there, and half of merchandise is making money, but the other half is also advertising your stuff. So if there's a cool image and people are walking around with a cool image with your URL on there or something like that, or your artwork, other people will say, hey, that's a really fucking cool thing. Where'd you get that? Oh, I went to so-and-so's Redbubble and I got that thing from them. It works. It can work. It requires a lot of patience and it actually requires a lot of things on that site. So if you just open up, if you just have one item on your Redbubble account, chances are you're not going to sell much. If you have 10 items on your Redbubble account, it's more likely that people are going to look through and see all the other stuff that you do and maybe buy a thing. So it's like going to the grocery store. The more stuff is in the grocery store, the more likely you'll find something that you might like. So if that's the route you want to go, if you want to go that route, try to fill your store with as much quality stuff. You don't want to put shit out there like, smiley faces, unless, I don't know, unless your comic is about smiley faces, and then you put your smiley face on stuff. But, try to fill your store with relatable things that are kind of related to your work. If you're into robots, no brainer, make a Redbubble that's a lot of robot shirts and a lot of robot prints and robot themed things. That's an easy thing to set up. It just requires time and patience, and a little bit of hustle. You want to tell people about it, through your social network and all that kind of stuff. I want to do a little aside here about those competition sites like Threadless. So I don't know. My feeling is that if I'm gonna work for free, I'm gonna work for me. And entering your stuff into a competition is just making more money for whoever that site is. You're making more money every time you submit to Threadless. You're making more money for Threadless because you're telling people, hey, I have a design on Threadless, vote for me. You're sending your friends to Threadless. They're getting hits off of that. Maybe you get coverage on a famous blog or something like that. You're sending more traffic to Threadless, and you might not even win. It sounds like a great deal, like winning $500 for a shirt design and a percentage of sales. That sounds awesome, but your chances of winning are very slim. And while you're doing all this work and while you're putting in all this effort, you're making more money for Threadless. So, if you're going to be working for free, work for yourself and put your design. If you believe in your designs, make that shit yourself. Put that up on a Redbubble. Put that up on a Cafe Press. Or, and this segues into the next section, make that shit yourself. If you have a design that you truly believe in, make that shit yourself. Now, there are some sites that are more juried. So I sell shirts through Redbubble, but I also sell shirts through Shark Robot. Shark Robot, I get a much better return than I do at Cafe Press. But it's not a site where you could go to and just upload a design and say, hey, Shark Robot, sell my thing. You actually have to submit work to Shark Robot and say, hey, I think these designs will work. Do you want to work with me? I have a webcomic, and Shark Robot has a long list of web cartoonists that they work with. So if you get to a good point where you're having a decent enough following and you have some decent designs, you could go to one of these more juried sites, and they might be willing to take you. So if you have a good idea, some of these, I don't know what you would call them, but there are sites out there that work with specific artists. They're not just a clearinghouse for anybody to sign up and post their stuff. They're more specific and they're more focused. However, if you can't figure out, or if you don't fit in with any of those places, you can run your own merchandise. You work your own stuff. And this is where the money comes in. So when you're starting out, you want to stick with one color screen printing because that's the most bang for your buck. You're going to get, if your design is really good, put it on a nice colored t-shirt, get a nice colored ink. And shirts are still, and it's always a joke, like, oh, you're a web cartoonist, that really means you're a shirt salesman. Shirts still tend to be a pretty good way to monetize a webcomic. And the audience for webcomics still pretty much buys shirts. They like shirts. They like wearables. They like having things that are made by their favorite creator and that they can go out into the world. And when people ask, hey, where'd you get that shirt? Oh, I got that shirt because I read this webcomic and it's so awesome. You need to fucking check it out so you can buy this shirt too. So shirts tend to still be a very good way to monetize your work. Costs money, but you can make it back fairly easily. Now, you can price them however you like. I will tell you that the price that the market will bear, that the web cartooning market will bear, is $20. So you go to a show, you're a web cartoonist, you're working a table, your shirts are $20, and you will sell shirts. People will buy a shirt for $20. Online, they could find them for $15 or $12, cheaper than that. But if they know they're buying from a cartoonist, if they know they're buying directly from you, if they know that their money is going to support you, $20 seems to be the price point that people are willing to pay. So go find yourself a screen printer that is affordable to work with. Brunetto shirts, A lot of web cartoonists use them. Their work comes very highly recommended. I think it's brunetto.com or something like that, but you can look it up. I have a lot of friends who do work through them, and they do really good work. I go through Jack Prints, JAKprints.com. I go through them because I like doing offset designs or oversized designs that fill an entire shirt, and sometimes weird placement. And they give you a lot of options for weird placements in multiple colors and things like that. But sometimes there are local screen printers to your area that, if you form a relationship with them, they'll be willing to work with you, give you discounts, do rush orders for you like that. So if shirts are the way you want to go, you got to do some research. You got to figure out if there is a place local to you that's really affordable and easy to work with. You got to find out if going online is the way to go, all that kind of stuff. And also you got to figure out if your audience wants to buy your shit. If no one is asking for shirts, chances are they don't want shirts. But we could do a whole another vlog about shirt design and all that kind of stuff. Just know that shirts still are a good way to monetize your content. Another great way to monetize a comic is books. Books, again, like shirts, cost money. Now, there are sites like Lulu. I think Amazon has a service where you can set it up and you can go through them, and they'll print on demand, and they'll print whatever book you need, and you can sell them online. And I think Amazon has a service where you can get your book right on the Amazon marketplace without actually having to purchase anything. All you got to do is go through their system, upload your files, and do that kind of stuff. So that's great. Print on demand doesn't get you as much return on your dollar as if you were printing them yourself, but offset printing can be expensive. Like if you're not ready to order 500 books, if you're not ready to jump in and pay for 500 books outright, and really you should probably be thinking about 1,000 or 2,000 to really get the most for your money. You might want to try one of these other sites. Like I forget what Amazon's thing is called, but there's Lulu, one of these print-on-demand sites. But yeah, webcomic audiences love buying books. They love buying shirts, and they love buying books from you. So the price point for books too is about $20. $20 is the price that the market will bear. So you want to have enough content for like 200 pages or so. So that means if you do a strip format comic, that's like 2 strips per page. So you'll need like 400 or 500 strips before you're ready to print. Or, maybe the back of your book is all commentary, so you can get away with fewer comics, but more value add, that kind of thing. I highly recommend going with an offset printer instead of print on demand, because you'll get a better return on your money. So like with an offset printer, it might cost you like $3 or $4 per book, and you sell that for $20. That's a great return. That you're making back your printing costs, you're making enough money to print another thing, and you're making a little bit on top. So the general rule with retail is you want to price your thing 3 times as much as it costs you to make it. That's not always the case. Sometimes the margin, you can get away with slimmer margins, but in general you want to price things 3.5 times more. So if you can get the thing for cheaper, the price is better. So offset printing gives you the best deal for per piece, per book. Now you got to order like 1,000 books, so that's where the financing comes into play. You might want to ask your friends or your parents or an investor. I don't know if you could do pre-sales anymore. I think PayPal won't let you do pre-sales anymore, but you used to be able to run pre-sales through PayPal so that you could determine whether or not your audience would be willing to pay for a book run. So yes, books are a good way to monetize your content. The third way in terms of merchandise is toys. Toys cost money. Like whether you're making a plush or whether you're running resin or whether you're doing plastic injection molding, toys cost fucking money, man. Like I did a puppy cow. I had to order a minimum of 1,200, and it was like 750 per piece or something like that, and that's a lot of fucking money. The good thing about putting other merchandise on your table besides shirts, besides books, is it kind of sets you apart from your fellow cartoonists. So now toys are expensive. Toys are difficult to deal with. But if you wanted to get your feet wet in toys, I would suggest resin casting. Resin casting, it takes time to figure out how to do. It takes practice. But I've run a few resins before in my lifetime, and it's not terrible. And you can price them as art objects. So like, you got a 3-inch resin that you've hand painted, you could sell it for like $20-$30. Or maybe you can get a bunch of blank DIY toys, like a money or a couple dunnies, and strip off the paint, or any one of those vinyl figures, vinyl blanks, and you can paint them up with a custom paint that's related to your comic, and you can sell those at your table, or you can sell them online. But anything that sets you apart from your fellow cartoonists, anything that's not a book or a print or a shirt, kind of sets you apart and kind of makes it more attractive, and gives somebody a nice little physical object that they can take home with them. So if you're starting out and if you're interested in toys, a good way to start out is getting those blanks, like a Dunny or a Trexie, or any one of those blank vinyls. They also sell some cheap knockoff vinyls at like Michael's and stuff like that. If you want to get a little bit more complicated, you can sculpt your own figure and resin cast that. And even more complicated, 3D printing route and resin casting and all that kind of stuff. But toys, I foresee more people doing more toys in the future. So if you hop on the bandwagon now, you'll be ahead of the curve. But make sure the toy is related to your comic. That doesn't mean you should create a gimmick character that is made specifically for toys. Like, I have a comic about 2 people sitting on a couch talking about video games. Oh, look, here's a fuzzy cat that's in the comic. And look, now you can buy my fuzzy cat that's in my comic just because I needed a mascot or something like that. Don't do that. That's cheap. But if you naturally have characters that would work, or items that would work in your comic that would make good toys, like for Yellow Peril, the Daruma figures that hop in and hop out, those would make a really good toy run. And I'm actually thinking about doing that sometime in the future. So if you have something in your comic already that would work for a toy, do the research, make a toy. Set yourself apart from your fellow cartoonists. Merchandise. Oh, I didn't talk about prints. I don't talk about prints because every time I've ever done prints, they have never fucking sold. So I am not the person to talk to about selling prints. I haven't done prints in 3 or 4 years. So maybe now would be a good time to jump back and try it out. But my personal experience has been awful for prints. So maybe look for somebody else if you want to start selling prints. Yeah. Sorry. Finally, I want to end up with crowdfunding. Now, of course, everyone knows what Kick Puncher is, Kickstarter, that kind of thing. And actually, to fund my first toy, I went to Kickstarter. And Kickstarter has kind of gone through a weird sort of evolution. When I first put Puppy Cow online on Kickstarter, it was a very, very much a patronage type of community. People were willing to invest in ideas. They didn't really care if your thing didn't turn out or if you didn't deliver when you said you did. They just loved the idea of directly supporting creators. But now, because Kickstarter has been around for a while and has that name, now we're seeing more of a customer base, like people going to Kickstarter to purchase things and use it like a store. And that's not the point. At least initially, it wasn't the point of Kickstarter. It was to help creators get enough funding to make a thing, to buy prototypes of items so that they could do a run. But now that there's so much money going through Kickstarter, it's becoming more of a shop. So there's nothing wrong with going to Kickstarter to fund a project, like to fund a book. Like if you want to get a print run, and you go through Kickstarter, that's a very viable way of funding a book project. But if you haven't thought about scalability, if you don't have an emergency plan for, like if you get a bajillion orders, if you don't have the ability to scale your work, you might want to consider limiting your Kickstarter, like putting limits on the various tiers. If you know you can handle this much, like if you price your Kickstarter for like $7,000 to get a book out, and you know that your printer can handle an order that, your $7,000 order, you can cap it. You can say like, I'm only going to allow 100 people at this backer level, and 200 people at this backer level, that kind of stuff. You can cap it so you can make less of a headache for yourself. If you let the floodgates open, you have to be prepared to scale your operation quickly. You have to know that your printer, whoever you're going through, can handle the volume. And if they can't, maybe cap your shit. It's kind of weird. Kickstarter backers are now a little bit more ornery if you don't deliver exactly when you say you will, and it's changed their client base. It's weird. I would hesitate. Me personally, I've used Kickstarter for Puppy Cow and for funding my second book, and I don't know. I've seen the Kickstarter audience kind of grow into directions that I'm not quite fond of. I've seen some really vicious comments in some Kickstarter threads, and it's disappointing because here's a really great thing. It helps. I would never have been able to make a toy if it wasn't through Kickstarter. Now I've made a Puppy Cow. Whoever thought that would fucking happen. Now I'm not so sure I would want to do Kickstarter to make a toy, because it took a long time to get Puppy Cow made. Like, I had my initial estimates and everything was fine, and then they had to change it on me. And so, my backers were really understanding during that whole process. Nowadays, I'm not sure the backers would be that understanding. Like, they're treating it more like a store rather than a place for ideas and for things like that. So I don't know. Backer beware, buyer beware, user beware. Kickstarter is very useful, but Kickstarter can also be very dangerous. So that's my caution about Kickstarter. There are some other crowdfunding platforms out there that cater to individual creators. One that I've used has been Backer, and they're I think it's backer.app.net. But the app.net people contacted me to see if I wanted to try out their Backer platform, and I ran a poster campaign for the 47 Bronin, which is a filler arc that I did when Hazel was born. So like, I needed the month off to figure out my life, and so I did this 47 Bronin, which is my bro-y take on the story of the 47 Ronin. And I ran a backer campaign to fund a poster, and it was a pretty small goal, and I had only like 3 reward tiers, but it was a pretty successful campaign. It was a lot of fun to run, and the app.net guys are an absolute joy to work with. So I will link Backer in the show notes so that you can check it out. It's still pretty new for cartoonists. I've seen a lot of backers for software program, like people making software and programs and things like that. So I was really honored to be asked by them to kind of jump in as a web cartoonist along with all these other software developers. I was like, I'm not sure I belong in this crowd, but I'll give it a shot. They were really great to work with. They answered my questions. They helped source the products that I wanted to put up. So I highly recommend working with Backer and working with the app.net crew. They're a lot of fun. They're very helpful. And it's still in its infancy. They're, the people who are looking at Backer and using Backer and contributing to Backer, it's still very much very new and very exciting stuff. So there's a lot of energy going into it, and get in on the ground floor, because now is the time to start. The other crowdfunding platform that I'm taking a look at is called Patreon. Patreon sort of works like a subscription service. People pay you a certain amount, whatever amount they can afford per month, or per update of the thing that you do. So for me, if I'm doing a monthly webcomic, every month patrons of my comic would pay me like, as little as $1 a month. So if you're already doing regular content, Patreon is a great way to monetize that content on a regular basis. So you're not just going for one lump sum, you get recurring money. Like a subscription fee, but it's a slightly different, because you can set up different things that are specific for backers only, like that there's a backer feed, there's a Patreon feed where you can, if you have additional commentary about your comics, or you can upload videos specifically for your backers. So Patreon is something that I'm going to be exploring very shortly. Wink, wink, wink. And see how that goes. So there are a number of crowdfunding platforms out there. Kickstarter is the big one, the big elephant in the room. And I guess, there's some advantages and disadvantages of that. I again, highly recommend Backer. But you should do some research out there. Check out some of the other crowdfunding platforms that people are using. Check out some success stories, check out some horror stories, and find out if crowdfunding is a direction you want to go to. Here's something I fucking hate, and this is just a pet peeve of me. I hate the Kickstarters where the person where they're setting it up to make the thing. Like, I'm running a Kickstarter to make my webcomic. Well, shouldn't you be making a webcomic anyway? I guess it's great that you figured out a way to get paid before you do a webcomic. But if I've never seen your work before, if I don't know who the fuck you are, why would I pay you to make a thing? It's just, it feels very much cart before the horse. If it works, that's great, and I wish I had figured that out before. I wish I had figured out a way for somebody to pay me to do something that I love to do anyway. I'm far more supportive of web cartoonists who go to Kickstarter after they've gotten a couple of years under their belt, and they're just looking for a boost. Like maybe they want to redesign the website, or maybe they want to do a print run. I can't stand the people who initially, right out the gate, they say, I am not going to do a comic unless I get paid to do it. That is so anti-webcomic. That is not the free content model at all. That is not what all of this shit is about. So, I don't know. That frustrates me to no end, because, you got to put in some work. You got to build an audience before you try to monetize them. Like monetizing right out the gate to like make a thing. I don't know, man. I don't know. I guess it makes sense for like a hardware product, like if you're making a cool little widget that's never been done before, and you need funding to prototype and all that kind of stuff. But you don't need money to make a fucking webcomic. You draw a thing, you scan a thing, you put it up online, and you just fucking do it. You monetize after. So I hate that. Don't talk to me if you're going to be starting a Kickstarter for your webcomic and you haven't put a webcomic up before. Now, if this is like your 8th comic or your 8th webcomic, and you kind of want to see if you could get funding for a new one, that's less of a problem. I have less of a problem with that. But if this is your first one out the fucking gate and you're trying to fund it already without posting a page or doing anything or taking the time to build a community around your work, that's just, I don't know. You don't get it. That person doesn't get it. That doesn't, you don't get what webcomics are about. And I don't want to talk to you. All right. So I hate to end on a negative note, but hopefully some of these ideas will help you figure out ways to monetize your content. there are certainly more. There are other platforms out there. Like there's a tipper platform where like people can tip you if they want to. I don't use it. I haven't seen many other people use it. So I mainly focused on things that I've seen successful with my friends and other people. So hopefully these will give you some ideas to get started if you're kind of heading down the path to monetizing your work. I'd love to hear other suggestions from you guys, other things that have worked for you, other things that you've seen other people do that I might have looked over. Add them in the comments or send me a response, anything like that. And thank you for sticking through this. How long is this sucker? Yeah, for sticking through another half hour of me rambling about things. We'll check you next time. Bye.